we have a lot of junior brokers that come in and they're scared to say that they don't know something. It's okay that you don't know. I mean, when you come in as a junior broker, you're not expected to know what someone's been in the business for 10 years knows.
Welcome to the Commercial Real Estate Academy podcast, the podcast dedicated to simplifying the commercial real estate industry for the masses. Each week, we sit down with industry experts to dissect the many facets of commercial real estate and extract valuable lessons you can apply to your business. Whether you're a new or seasoned business owner or investor, the Commercial Real Estate Academy podcast will be your go-to resource for all your commercial real estate needs. Now, here are your hosts, Raphael Collazo and Jeff Walston.
Welcome to the Commercial Real Estate Academy podcast. I'm your host, Raphael Collazo, here with my co-host, Jeff Walston. How's it going, my friend?
Going great. Excited to have our guest on today. Can't wait for everybody to listen to what she has in store for us. I know she has a great story to tell. So,
absolutely.
Yeah,
go ahead. No, I couldn't agree more, really. And you know, our guest today actually is Kristina Rodriguez. She's a national manager at SRS Industrial. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, is in Dallas, Texas. Is that correct, Kristina?
That's correct. Yes.
Awesome. Well, we're really honored to have you on the show. Like we had talked offline, you know, you have a very unique background, and we're really excited to kind of dive in and learn a little bit more about what you do. So one of the things we typically like to do when we first get started is we like to learn a little bit more about the person that's across the table from us. So if you don't mind kind of sharing your backstory, I think that'd be great.
Sure, absolutely. So I've been in the real estate business for about 20 plus years. I started the first half of my career in multifamily property management, and was as a leasing agent for Trammell Crow Residential back in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. So after that, I kind of moved through the ranks from there, and a position came open at their corporate headquarters here in Dallas. I interviewed, got the position, and picked up my family and moved to Dallas. Didn't have anybody here, didn't know anybody. Came in as a training specialist. So one of the things that I really enjoyed doing was teaching and training associates how to lease apartments and how to put heads on beds and stuff like that. So I got the gig. I came here a week after I moved here. The company sold. I about lost my marbles. Was fortunate enough that the CFO decided to keep me on as her assistant. So then Trammell Crow Residential became Riverstone Residential Group. And so I worked for them for a very long time. And then I decided to try my hand in commercial real estate. So the latter part of my 10 years has been in commercial real estate. I've worked with Cushman & Wakefield. I've worked with Colliers, and now I'm with SRS Industrial.
That's amazing. So you're you're originally from Louisiana, or where are you from originally?
So I was born in Houston, but I was raised in Louisiana. So Louisiana is, I consider home.
That's awesome.
Yes.
Yeah, no.
Good Cajun food and good music.
Oh man, absolutely. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
And similar to, you know, the transplant feel when you're moving to a place you don't know many people, like that can be a very scary proposition. I know I've done a lot in my life, and it's not always easy, but I'm sure at this point in time, when you've been around as long as you have in the market, it probably feels pretty homey as well. So
yeah, one of the benefits that helped me through the transition was being prior military. So with that and learning how to move and shake when you need to, and not sweat the small stuff, you learn to move quickly and adjust fast. So that was a huge help for me.
Yeah, my dad was ex-military, Air Force, so we moved all my life. So I get it. Yeah. It's a lot.
So I don't mind moving around. Sometimes I feel trapped if I stay somewhere too long, and I'm like, oh, I gotta go.
So you said that you kind of did the multifamily and property management. Are you still in that avenue, or since you're in the SRS Industrial, did you move into a different avenue?
So I'm no longer work with multifamily. I focus now on industrial. I've dabbled in office a little bit, and I work parallel with some brokers in retail, but my main focus is industrial.
Oh, nice.
And we do like tenant rep services, owner services, capital markets, development services, and stuff like that. So our service line is very wide.
Have you, what was a deal? I don't know if you can say their name or the business, but like the most recent, I'm trying to get a feel for how the country's moving in commercial real estate in general. So if you can kind of elaborate of maybe the last deal and what you maybe can see down the road, that'd be great.
Sure. So we actually just wrapped up some of our research reports for third quarter. And what the team is seeing right now is that there's kind of been a halt in a lot of deals, a lot of contracts being dropped. And I guess that's because of the climate that's happening right now with the interest rates and the cap rates. And so I think a lot of stuff is being pushed to second quarter of next year. So right now we're just kind of at a pause for a lot of things. We are still seeing some renewals come through and things like that, inquiries, right? But nothing more than that right now.
Yeah,
Okay.
I get it. I mean, it is a very tumultuous environment at this moment in time. I think it's more so just a shock to the system where you were in such a low interest rate environment, and we were just essentially in a bull market for many years, and then the moment that there's some disruption, it can cause people to kind of sit back and wait and see what's going on. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, that could be a very prudent approach when it comes to business, but it does mean that the commercial real estate industry has experienced a little bit of flux as of late. So, we're seeing it here in Louisville. I'm sure it's happening all over the country. So that's pretty interesting to see. So you had mentioned something regarding, your experience, and I'd love to dive into it a little bit. When you first started out in the business, you it seems like you've had a lot of experience on the operations front. So, and this is something that, we've had a lot of different brokers that have come on the podcast, and, obviously their initial experience was on the brokerage end, maybe not so much on the operations front. And so that's why I'd kind of like to learn a little bit more about, those experiences, and then what lessons have you learned that you now apply to what you do today?
A lot of the things that what I do is I provide an exceptional client experience, and I do that on the back. May not be client facing when it comes to negotiating leases and doing tours and stuff like that. But I help the brokers run their business on the back end to where they don't have to worry about it, where they focus on business development and focus on their clients' needs and doing those lease negotiations and doing those tours. So a lot of what I do has to do with the transaction process. So starting from facilitating documents to doing those research reports, to creating marketing campaigns, trying to find really cool ways to promote the brokers and their business, and just help generate that business development for them on that side.
That's awesome. And so what are some of the ways that you do that, kind of out of curiosity? And this is more so even kind of selfish on my part, because I'm always trying to find ways to improve in a variety of different capacities.
One really big key points is communication. So I hear a lot of brokers say, I wish my support would be more engaged, or they're not ahead of the curve, or they're not proactive. And what I find is that the gap that's missing is that communication part. A lot of brokers don't include their support or their operations into their deal from when they start it to when it comes to close. And if you let that support person feel like they're a part of the process, then they understand the broker workflow, and they're able to kind of be proactive and make those extra steps that you don't have to worry about, or something that is coming up and they've already done it. So that's an extremely important piece that I think is missing a lot along the way.
Okay. So do you see a lot of times where, there is a disconnect between the support and brokers, where they're just kind of operating in a silo and not really being effective communicators when it comes to the team around them?
I think so. And I think it's on both sides, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So I think it's the broker it's really important to be that coach and that mentor, and engage the support person. And for the support person, it's really important to engage and ask questions, be curious. Like if someone is asking, here, I did this listing agreement, whatever, you can be like, okay, well, how does that work? What is this for? Asking questions about it, or doing an RFP or an LOI. Like, why do we have this? Why are we asking for this? And kind of engaging and being interested in the broker's business. I think that's a huge part that's missing also on the support side. is asking those questions or maybe being intimidated to ask those questions. Because as we know, brokers have a very type A personality. And so sometimes they can be intimidated to approach them.
That makes sense. And
Yeah.
go ahead, Jeff. Go ahead, Jeff. I'm sorry.
No, I was just agreeing with Kristina. Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
No,
type
no.
A for sure.
No, for
Yeah.
sure. And it kind of goes to another point, which I'm kind of curious to get your take on, is that, I know, Jeff and I are business owners in town. I'm on the brokerage side. He owns a commercial construction firm here in Louisville. And one of the
Okay.
things that we've kind of taken upon ourselves, I would say, over the last year or so is the documentation piece of,
Mhm.
getting our systems and processes written out so that, individuals who are coming on in some capacity, like I have a virtual assistant that helps me. So I have a staff of one, but in the case of Jeff, like he may have subcontractors, and at some point he's going to have other employees, and he needs to be able to compart that information over to them and in a variety of ways. It could be documented versus in video. So as I guess in your capacity as someone who's a leader when it comes to this, the operation side, is that something that you guys put a premium on as far as creating those systems and documentation and everything else, or how does that work on the training side?
Absolutely. So how it looks is what we plan to do is, if for some reason, if I'm out,
Mhm.
someone should be able to come in and pick up exactly where I left off, and not skip a beat. There shouldn't be any feeling of, oh, there's a gap or something's missing, or we're not missing a deadline, or we're missing a deadline and stuff like that. So what I like to say is model, mimic, master, and multiply, right? So you create a model, you mimic it over and over again until you streamline it and get it like you want it. You master it. And then as you bring new people on, that's when you multiply it and you just pass it on to where it's like, it's an automatic.
That's amazing. There's this book that I read that kind of put me on to the whole operations and process for business, and it was called High Output Management. It was written by the CEO of Intel, and he talks about that concept where it's like you could do a one-to-one training, and it's a one-to-one relationship, right? You put the information one-to-one, which is very helpful in a lot of different capacities.
Mhm.
But he also says, like, if you're going to be training a good amount of people, you can always create something, whether it's a video or something that is a little bit more consumable from a broader audience. And now it's a one-to-many relationship. So it again, there's different reasons for doing each of those methods. Obviously, one-to-one's a little bit more personal, and especially if you're dealing with something very more, specific that needs to be addressed one-to-one, then that could be a good setting for that. But when you start talking about, teaching a broad range of individuals concept that is beneficial, incorporating some form of, video content, or even creating a little pamphlet or booklet or something that can kind of elaborate what you're trying to do is very beneficial. So
yeah, you kind of got to get the whole gambit because people learn differently too. So having those different mediums is really important. I also am really big on collaboration. So if you are modeling a process, finding it and tweaking it and getting other people's opinion that you may work with, like a partner or something like that. So one of the exercises I did was I had a staff member write a process, like, how do you do this step by step, as if I've never seen it before. And then I take that process and give it to someone who's never done it. And if they can follow it to the T and come out with the same product, I'm like, we're golden, right? And then if there's not, then they make those notes saying, hey, I kind of don't understand this, or what about this, or stuff like that. And that way collaboration comes together and you can create a great process that you can, teach other people.
definitely.
Yeah, it's definitely great advice. I know a lot of our listeners are younger, they're just getting into the field. And so I kind of want to take a step back in your early part of your career, like maybe some of the struggles that you faced and then ways that you overcame them.
So funny you say that. One of the struggles that I had was when I got out of the military, I didn't have an exit strategy because back then the military really didn't provide a great guide or path for those getting out as much as what they focus on now, right?
Yeah.
And so I didn't know what I wanted to do. And so I worked all kinds of odd jobs, from data entry to janitor to convenience store worker. I was stocking shelves, cleaning gas pumps. And so one day I was outside cleaning gas pumps, and family friend drove by, and she was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I'm just trying to figure out my life. I'm working, I'm going to school." And she was like, "I have the perfect job for you." And I was apprehensive because I didn't know what I wanted to do. Did I want to go back and be a cop out in the civilian world? Like I didn't know, and I was still going through school. And so I was like, sure, I'll go to the interview, whatever. And then that catapulted to where I am today. So I say that to say this: it's like I had to get out of my own way and not keep myself in a box. And take that risk, because you never know what opportunities are out there. Another example is when I was working at a company, I got comfortable, right? When you get comfortable, you become complacent. And so I didn't realize I was stuck where I was until the company was doing some shifting and changing in leadership. And I started thinking about my career, what I wanted to do, where I was going, because I'd been sitting in that position for a couple of years and I hadn't done anything. And then I ended up reading this book, and I was like, wow, like it's all about mindset, right? Again, get out of your way, open up your mind, and have a positive mindset. If you see everything as negative and don't see things as opportunities, you're just going to go into this tailspin, right? And so that would be my recommendation, is to, stay positive, look at the silver lining. I know it's that pie in the sky kind of idea, but you are your worst critic, or you are your promoter, right? And so it's all about what you want your life to be, and you need to get out of your way mentally. So that's my advice.
Hey, I know that's going to be helpful, because people are, all of them are facing the same thing. I mean, there's some people that are getting at the end of their career that they have, or they thought they wanted, and now they're like looking for a new direction. And so they started up. And so I love that part about the story of the cleaning gas pumps, and somebody's like, stop by, "What are you doing?" You're like, "I'm trying to figure out my life.
I don't know what I'm doing.
I do it. I love that. But yeah, I mean, that's totally going to help some of our listeners for sure.
And it's the same thing, I have a 23-year-old. And so kind of he got stuck in that COVID debacle, right? I guess that's what I would call it in my household. It's, he was in college, and then COVID hit, and he's like, "What am I doing? Where am I going?" And then he's isolated, and you don't realize the toll that it takes, especially if you don't have a positive environment that you're in, to where it's like people just kind of get into their mind, and it's crazy that the effect that it has. And so one of the things that I'm really big about is surround yourself by people that you want to be like, not people that drain you or hold you down. Because you are a reflection of your 5 closest people in your group, right? And so that's one of the things that I had to really pound into him is, surround yourself by people that will help you grow, not by people that will keep you down and keep you in your brain and stuff like that. So
absolutely. And you even alluded to it a little bit earlier about the beliefs in your head, right? I mean, that's your mind is a very powerful thing. If you allow it to kind of run wild, it can be very detrimental. And I remember and I could share this, during COVID, there were periods of time where I was not depressed, but I was in a state where I was just like, man, this is really unfortunate. I'm sitting at home all day. There's no activity. I just started with the brokerage career, and I was like, man, this is terrible. Like, it sucked. But, I think what it came down to was, surrounding yourself, like you said, with positive influences. Luckily, I have a very close relationship with my family, so constant communication with them. And then obviously my girlfriend, now wife, was a big support for me that whole time too. But I can definitely see where if you isolate yourself, it can be a very lonely place. And COVID was one of those unique situations where that happened a lot. And I volunteer at the University of Louisville I was on a board for a fraternity that I was a part of, and a lot of the university kids that graduated in middle of COVID, that was terrible for them. Like they couldn't experience the last few, years of their college career. And it just is unfortunate. And same goes for elementary, high school, et cetera, all of them. So
it's crazy. Like I told my kids, I would never want to be a kid right now.
Mm-hmm.
Ever.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I can only imagine. Yeah. But so one thing, going back to the operations front, I'm kind of curious about, more related to some of the shortfalls that brokers typically have, because a lot of the people they're listening to our podcast are in the brokerage space. And then there's some that are in the development space, construction. We've had people on that have talked that are, commercial real estate technology companies. So it is a broad range of individuals that listen to the podcast, but I would say a good amount are brokers, especially early on in their careers. So if you could share some insights pertaining to, some of the operational issues that you typically see with those newer brokers that are, kind of starting out in their career.
Right. I've seen a lot of, it goes back to asking questions, right? Being inquisitive. We have a lot of junior brokers that come in and they're scared to say that they don't know something. It's okay that you don't know. I mean, when you come in as a junior broker, you're not expected to know what someone's been in the business for 10 years knows. If you're filling out a listing agreement or doing an RFP or an LOI and you're like, where do I start? Usually your senior broker either has a template, someplace to start. And I'm like, ask those questions. Also leverage your operations people, from your research staff to your marketing staff. They have great knowledge. Hey, I'm trying to pitch this business. I need to know labor statistics, or I need to know traffic counts, or whatever the case may be. I'm like, okay, so that would be research. I need to reach out to them and see what information they have, because operations have access to platforms that brokers pretty much don't know that they have access to. And it's an abundance of information. It's ridiculous how much information that these different pockets in operations has. So leverage those, ask those questions, reach out, don't be scared. I mean, being a broker in the business is engaging, right? Creating relationships. I mean, if you can't create relationships and build relationships, you're not going to be successful. And so in my opinion, so if that's part of the gig, you shouldn't be, you should be able to reach out to your operations staff without any hesitation.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times too, it's the not even knowing where to go. And I think that's what's so great about what you guys are doing. And I think in general, when it comes to the operation side, is that, providing those nodes where you explain to people, hey, if you have a question, you can go here, you can go here, you can go here. And ultimately, those who end up being successful in brokerage, it does take a little bit of initiative. So you can lead a horse to water, as they say, but you can't make them drink. So as long as you provide the template and provide the environment where they have the resources at their disposal, now it's their responsibility to make it, to take it to the next level at that point.
Right.
So.
And I see a lot of junior brokers or young brokers that come in, and some of them are put with teams and some of them are not. The ones that are put with teams, they do have that support person that they can reach out to. And I would recommend them leveraging them because usually that support person is been in the business for years. Kind of like, I'm going to do a military scenario, kind of like an officer and an NCO. An officer comes in green, as a lieutenant. But then your platoon sergeant, he's been in there for about 10 years. You know what I'm saying? So you need to ask them questions. So I would say if you're in a team, leverage what you have. If you're brought in not in a team, it's very important to network with those high producing brokers, doing those one-on-one meetings and asking them questions. And then taking that time to meet with individual operations people, whether it's a support person, going to lunch with them or meeting with the research people, take that time to set those meetings to find out how they can help you run your business.
Absolutely.
Great advice. Great advice. I know. So in the industry of commercial real estate, it doesn't seem very diverse. And what I mean is it's predominantly male. And let's be honest here, it's predominantly, at least of all the cities I've been in, is Caucasian. So so my question to you, Kristina, being a woman in the commercial real estate industry, what are some ways that you could think of that would help improve the diversity in the industry?
That's a kind of a loaded, difficult question.
It is. Yeah. I did do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did do that.
So, well, back when I worked at Colliers, I was actually one of the co-managers of the diversity and inclusion program.
Oh.
And so I was part of the employee resource groups. And what that is it's a group that helps those groups that aren't recognized or not helped throughout the industry. And so I was a part of that group that helped create the Veterans Initiative program, the Women's Network, the Black Professionals, the Latin Network. So what I would say for a business, it's really good to create these groups because it creates a sense of camaraderie. It creates a sense of someone that I can go to, I can talk to, who experiences the same things I do. Because I can't come to you, Jeff, and be like, hey, I'm having a problem because you're not a Hispanic female.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so for me to come to you and you trying to relate, that's not going to happen. It's not that you can't have empathy and be a part of that group and be supportive and be a mentor for a group like that. But to have people that I can go and talk to and be like, man, I'm just having a really difficult time. I feel like I'm being treated differently because I'm a woman and in a leadership position, or I feel like because I'm Hispanic, I feel like I'm being treated a certain way, or whatever the case may be. It's having those groups that you can just talk to, almost like support groups, pretty much.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the really important things that a company should do to help diversify their group. You'd be surprised at the different talents and the different ideas that come through diversity. I've seen it, and it's amazing. The collaboration is amazing. So I'm really hoping that shift happens because there's not a lot of females in the industrial sector, right? And so here in Dallas, we started iWire, which is Industrial Women in Real Estate. The chapter here in Dallas, a couple of females started it that are affiliated with commercial real estate in some way, shape, or form. So it's about bringing women together that are part of the industrial to find relationships, to build those networks and to leverage that. I'm hoping one day that there will be more females in offices across the board when it comes to brokerage, because that's where we don't see it. We see a lot of women in operations. Like right now here at SRS, in the industrial team, we have Shannon Johnston. She is our only female in our team. She's been in the business for a very long time. I worked with her before at Cushman and Wakefield. She's amazing. And she's a powerhouse. And so to have females like that, it's inspiring and motivating. And so we just need some more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a strength in diversity, I believe, and I think a lot of people, and maybe older or not, they don't really see that. But in my belief is having that diverse table sitting around in all walks of life, you're going to get that perspective that you would definitely never ever get if you didn't have that diverse team. So encourage.
It's just like you don't think about it,
No.
So
yeah, and
I
think a big part too is the because really what we're trying to control is the attrition rate in early on in the career, because especially in brokerage, it's notorious for people just attrition. I mean, most brokers aren't around after 5 years. It's just that's how the business is, and there's already so many things stacked against you in that capacity because it's a commission only role. It's very dependent on your production and out in the marketplace. And to add on to that, you don't have necessarily the same support that other people who do have a different background to you have. That can cause issues, and I think if you were to look at the numbers, I bet, we may have people coming into the business, but the attrition rate is probably higher amongst those groups that aren't necessarily as well represented. And I think a big reason for that, like you said, is the community piece. And it kind of lends back to what we were talking about earlier. It's like when you don't have the support around you, you can get in your head, and that's not an uncommon thing. So yeah, I agree with you. I think that, and just having these conversations and making sure that people understand that, put it in the forefront of these discussions. That's the way you make change. It takes time, but it's all about having the conversation and continuing to, inch forward on a day-to-day basis. So,
right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, for sure. So one thing that we typically like to do near the end of the podcast episode is we have something where we like to ask our guests to provide us with the most impactful book they've ever read. We're all voracious readers. I'm a big Audible guy. I really like to listen to my Audible as I'm driving around town. So one thing I was kind of curious about is what is the most impactful book you've ever read? It doesn't have to necessarily be real estate related. It can be any topic whatsoever.
So I am a Audible person, more podcast. But to go back to where that point in my career where I was comfortable and complacent, I ended up picking up the 10X book by Grant Cardone. And I read that and I was like, wow, have I been thinking small or what? You know what I mean? And so that book kind of helped catapult my, re-engage my purpose and my goals and what I want to do. So that is the book that actually catapulted me and the one that has meant the most to me. The podcast that I listen to every morning is Real AF with Andy Frisella. That's that's actually one of my favorites. The MFCEO project, I listen to those over and over and over again because there's some like gold nuggets in there. You listen to it the first time, second time, third time, you're always picking up something new. So I really like his mindset and how his grit and that's just like my speed. So those are my two.
The real, I've listened to his podcast several times. He's real for sure. I love he's raw, but that's the type of, it cuts through the crap, as they say, right? He gets to the point. It's like, look, this is the situation. And I really appreciate the candor that he does.
I do too. Sometimes I feel that today we sugarcoat a lot of things and we're very care about people's emotions and how they feel and how things are said, when really you should just take the message for what it's worth and not read into it. And like you said, I love his rawness. I like that he's real and he just lays it out there like it is. To the point where I've even shared a couple episodes with my kids and they're like, oh my gosh, Mom. And I'm like, listen to it. Listen to him. Blows their mind.
Well, Jeff and I talk about it all the time. It's like, sometimes I'm just like, I just wish people would just be straight. Like, I feel like a lot of it has to do with just not wanting to be the confrontation. So, sometimes it's like, if you're trying to deliver bad news, I'd much prefer someone just to tell me, hey, this is the situation, versus saying, well, this and that. It's like, okay, come on. We're wasting each other's time right now. We gotta make things happen.
And when they do, like, they tell you something good, then they tell you bad. It's like a sandwich of some kind. I'm like, no.
Stop it.
Just give me the middle.
Yeah, just stop it. I know what you're trying to do. Like, I know what you're trying to do. It's like, that's what I'm saying. It's the BS factor. It's like, okay, just tell me so I can do something about it. Because if I don't know what I need to do, there's nothing I can do. Right.
You don't know what you don't know. Tell me. Let's go and move forward.
Well, Kristina, as we start to round out the end of the podcast, I want to say, I really appreciate you coming on, sharing your story. I loved it. I know that you're going to help out so many people and our listeners, and I can't wait to hear that. So one of the things that we ask all of our guests is, we have a CRE treasure chest, with a repository of information that we ask our guests to give out to our listeners. And we try to get, it can be an ebook or it can be a case study or it could be something that maybe in business operations that you guys done, just a list of things, hey, do this, or a process of some sort that's written down that you'd be willing to contribute. So is there anything that comes to mind that you might want to contribute to the treasure chest?
Yeah, so I went ahead and submitted the tips for a marketing flyer, because you would be surprised how many e-blasts I get, and I pull the flyer up and there's information missing that I or my broker needs to be able to take to the client and make a decision. Now, whether this is the tactic of, oh, I want you to call me, I don't personally agree with that tactic. I prefer to, hey, I'm going to give you all the information up front so you can get it to your client, because if we're going to make a deal, we're going to make a deal. And so I provided a list of like musts to have on a flyer. So that's like property photos, interior and exterior, because people want to see what they're going to get, right?
Yeah.
You got your aerial photos. For example, if you guys are in Louisville, Kentucky and want something in Dallas, I got to give you a nice little aerial so you know where the place is, where the site is, what's around it, traffic counts, demographics, population, whatever the case may be. And then another one is property highlights. So bullet points, whether it's a couple of sentences or bullet points, high level, boom, boom, boom. This is what this property offers you. And then most importantly, contact information. For some reason, I have seen some flyers come through without contact information. And I would highly recommend having 2 people on there, because if one person doesn't answer, they can always go to the second. So I provided that. And also on my LinkedIn page, you'll see that I provide various like top tips and stuff like that, that you can always go back and reference.
Super helpful.
Yeah.
I'm in the same boat as you. Sometimes I'm shocked by the way some people present the properties. I mean, it's so bad. One time, like a lot of people, they just take like a snapshot on their phone. It's just one picture and it's just the front of the building. And it's like, okay, that really helps. And then
You're like, how am I supposed to make a decision based on that?
And then it's like, and they don't share anything. It's like, call agent for more details. I'm like, oh my God, that's like the worst. But you're right. I think you're right. I mean, and again, we can make decisions relatively quickly to see if it's a right fit for us. And you'd rather filter out through the noise than have to.
Yes.
Yeah, that's exactly it, right? You'd rather filter through the BS and just get the ones that are interested right away than have people just call you randomly and then just say, okay, well, this obviously isn't a good fit. And I could have filtered this out at the beginning had you just been a little bit more forthright. So
time's money, people.
Time is money.
Time is money.
That's awesome. Well, Kristina, honor to have you on the podcast. As we said before, I think we had a phenomenal discussion. I know our audience is going to gain a lot of value from it. One thing we typically like to do at the end of the podcast is I wanted to give you an opportunity. If you wanted to get in contact with you, learn more about what you do, connect with you, what's the best way to do so?
So on LinkedIn, I'm at Kristina Rodriguez 01. And if you guys want to spell that out for your audience, on Instagram, it's the Kristina Rodriguez. On Twitter, it's KRod 0916. And just a little tidbit on the KRod. So that was my nickname in the military. So it is still being used today in the commercial real estate business. So that's where you can get in touch with me.
That's awesome.
Nice.
No, we'll include those in the show notes as well. So if you guys are watching this on YouTube, it'll be the description. If you guys are listening to this in a podcast format, whether it's Apple or Spotify or whatever else, it'll be in the description as well. So again, Kristina, thank you so much for your time. We greatly appreciate it. If you guys are listening to this in a podcast format, we would greatly appreciate it if you could leave a 5-star review. It really does make an impact in our ability to reach a broader audience. And for those of you guys are listening to podcasts, Kristina just did a bunch of 5s in the air, because leave a 5-star review. That'd be great. If you guys are watching this on YouTube, also please like and subscribe. It makes a huge impact on our ability to reach a broader audience, and we would greatly appreciate it. So thank you all so much for tuning in, and we'll see you all next time.